Purdy throwing, it's caught. Touchdown. And a flag is down on the far side of the 11-yard line. So for the moment, Ronnie Bell gets into the end zone. First down and goal now from the 8-yard line. And a big hole, and bulling his way is Matt Breida for a touchdown. Pressure. Deep. Caught. Samuel.
Touchdown. There it is, the big horn at the big bell bottom as the San Francisco 49ers take care of business on Thursday Night Football. Let the Giants hang around a little bit, but ultimately never a game in doubt. 30-12, the final. San Francisco improves to 3-0 on the season. The Giants fall to 1-2. Dan Hanzus here along with the great Marc Sessler. And Marc, we knew this was a big challenge for the Giants. Best of circumstances. It's not the best of circumstances. Saquon Barkley has a high ankle sprain. I thought it was an ordinary sprain, Marc. It's a high ankle sprain. He confirmed it today on Amazon in an interview. So he's out this week and beyond that. And he takes Saquon out of the mix, and this was just a mismatch really from the start.
Yeah, it kind of is set apart for me a little bit with some of these Thursday night games where you kind of think you know what's going to happen. And then because it's Thursday night, and they talked even tonight about the fact that, like, you can't even really teach your scout team quickly enough what the other team might do. It's like it's such a compacted practice time, and a lot of teams don't even have a physical practice. But still, so that creates this weirdness in Thursday nights where, like, games go awry, they go a little strange. But what the more realistic scenario is like you kind of lean on who you are, and I think we just saw these two teams for who they were tonight, and one of them is stripped of their best player. It's a running back, and so your backup, Matt Breida, comes in and rushes only 4 times for 17 yards. The Giants, who I think, if anything, they needed to create disturbance and problems out of the gate. You don't get Darren Waller a catch until, I think, a minute to go before the half. And the Niners, just did what they did. If anything, I thought the plan was with Wink Martindale was to come out and throw everything at Brock Purdy and try to create chaos and mistakes. And they did. There's an interesting stat. Let me bring this up here. It's I saw this from PFF that they blitzed the 49ers on 83% of their snaps in the first half, which is the 4th highest rate of any game of the past 5 years. So there was a plan there. There was a concept of, like, we can still maybe take this young quarterback and throw him off his game. And Purdy wasn't perfect, but it's like there's too much happening with this Niners offense. Brandon Ayuk is not in there, but it's like they found a way just to make enough big plays where I found it to be a sort of a prosaic, not very memorable game. And to be honest with you, this happens to us when you're going to cover every one of these. And the Niners sort of performed exactly to the standards that I would have expected on a lower octane night out at the ballpark.
Yeah, they were obviously the better team. We knew that, but it was almost like they didn't put the foot on the accelerator throughout the game because they knew they didn't need to for the most part. And Brock Purdy, like you said, he wasn't as accurate, and he kind of warmed up as the game went along. So you had no Brandon Ayuk. The connection with Debo was off early on. And yet they were able to, when the passing game's not right, you have Christian McCaffrey there. And McCaffrey in an otherwise, I guess you could call it ho-hum game, another 100 yards from scrimmage, 85 rushing yards, yet another TD, which is pretty remarkable. I think he has a touchdown now in 12 consecutive games, which is just amazing. I mean, to have that level of consistency, it feels like I don't want to jinx the men. It feels like we're a long way away now from that cursed period of his career where, he couldn't stay on the field. He's really become everything San Francisco could have wanted. And so when you have McCaffrey there and you have Debo there, who eventually warmed up, and he had another great classic Debo game. Debo's one of my favorite players in the league. He's so fun to watch. He had 77 yards after catch in this game, and that was before he caught the long touchdown. That kind of was the exclamation point on this game. It was also one of my favorite Debo things, Mark. I talked about it during our fantasy extravaganza. There's one bit of a devil's bargain with Debo Samuel in fantasy. There will be a handful of moments. I don't mean just one or two. There's going to be 6 or 7 moments where you're watching a Niners game and Debo goes down on the field, and all of a sudden they cut to commercial with the entire medical staff around him, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I got to go to the waiver wire. This is crushing. My team's never going to be the same. He misses 3 plays, and then he comes back and scores a touchdown. He's been doing this his whole career. It's one of my favorite things that about him is he's a showman when it comes to injuries.
He really is. I thought of you tonight because you're one of the first people that brought that up and kind of encapsulated it in a perfect way. He's been doing this for years, and tonight I was watching this with a couple of people, it's with a friend or two, and it was just wait, Debo does this all the time. He's down on the ground, arms spread,
he's dead.
Got medical staff.
You're literally wondering, is he dead?
Will we ever see him again in this capacity, or will he be wheeled out to old age events? And then 2 plays later, he's walking around like this with his shoulder pads bouncing around. It's he knows what he's doing. He's I love him for this. I think he's enjoyable, and it's I look at this team. It's I think we both can say we've seen the Niners when they're operating at a feverish pace and they're just hand around the neck of the opponent, and the opponent is dying slowly. This was not that game, and it they still had 14 first downs to New York's 5 at the half, 244 yards by the break, 41 plays to 24, 20 minutes of possession, 7 of 10 for third down, which is third down is a weird stat, but when you're 7 for 10, you're about as efficient as you can possibly be. And the Giants had 12 yards rushing, and you're asking Daniel Jones, who we don't totally believe in, to save the day with a bunch of wide receivers we don't totally believe in. And Darren Waller's not involved early. And it's you can just see it on Brian Daboll's face, man. He I love Daboll, but he was so frustrated. And it's their schedule's been tough. They've been in a tough spot to begin with. And this just exacerbated it. But the Niners, I thought, played a gentleman's C game and dominated statistically in the first half against another NFL team.
I think it tells you a lot about both teams. And even with Saquon, the Giants are a tier or even 2 beneath San Francisco. Who they're so good, Mark, that when you see that they drafted Jake Moody, which was a total the type of draft pick a team makes when they are so full of themselves about their roster. Oh, we'll go on day 2, we'll go grab a kicker because that's the only real glaring hole we have left, even though the previous kicker, Robbie Gould, was one of the best veterans in the league. And now that guy has started 9 for 9, Moody, as a rookie. So he's no Roberto Aguayo. And, it's almost like they have a big-time player at almost every position, certainly the glamour positions. And I understand Purdy, we're not ready to put him in the Hall of Fame, but he's a very, very good fit for this offense. But they have a superstar left tackle. They have at least 1 superstar wide receiver and maybe 2. They have the best all-around running back in the league. They have one of the best edge rushers in the league. They have one of the best linebackers in the league in Fred Warner. They have depth in the secondary. They have everything that you could want on a team, and anything short of a Super Bowl this season is considered failure for this organization, which there's pressure there. So that I think games like this, when they don't even seem to be playing that well and they still take care of business, that's what really good teams do. And kind of swing it back to the Giants, because you've mentioned his name twice, Mark. I am not into this Darren Waller situation with the Giants. I like that Kirk Herbstreit was kind of calling Waller out. I don't think Waller's effort level was where it needed to be near the end of his Raiders time, really maybe coincidentally when he got a huge contract. And Herbstreit all but called the guy out for not trying hard in this game. And it is a bad sign when Darren Waller is not coming down with contested catches, when the Giants, one of their biggest glaring deficiency is they don't have a true number 1 wide receiver. And that's something I think you're going to see them address aggressively in the upcoming offseason, whether it's going after a guy like T. Higgins or through the draft, because that is a big hole in this roster. Ostensibly, Darren Waller, Mark, was supposed to be this guy that filled that hole and was a red zone monster. I'm just not seeing it through 3 weeks, and I don't know, like Herb Street, if this guy is really giving everything he can to this offense when they need him so badly.
Yeah, I thought that criticism, I kind of like that from an announcer to begin with. A lot of these guys shy away from that. You're down your number one running back, your best player on offense. Like you said, you got Jalen Hyatt, you got some young, interesting guys at wideout, but this should have been the Darren Waller game. Now, I don't think that would have made the entire difference had he even played one of his better games against this team. But it's a combination of the Giants not finding a way to get him the ball early, and that could be a Daniel Jones thing. Like I said, he didn't have a catch till right before half. You can question the effort. It's hard for me to gauge that as a viewer necessarily, but I would say that the plan for him seems not totally on point on any level. And the Giants,
he just looks so different than the guy in the Raiders 3 or 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
And the guy we've seen. Remember, you knew that the one thing, it was a good trade at the time, but the one thing that smelled funny was how do the Raiders make him, I think he might have been the highest paid tight end in the league when they gave him the contract or close to it, and then 1 year later dump him for a day 2 pick. And you just wonder if there's more to it. And there was a shot to Brian Dable after the ball that caromed off his hands for the interception that kind of was the end of the game, where you could tell Dable's face is like, come on, bro. Come on,
yeah,
you got to help me out here. And so it's this, they didn't lose because of Darren Waller tonight, but I think they have an issue. Daniel Jones is not maybe a star, but I don't know if he has, especially without Barkley there, a lot at his disposal to really put together consistent production week after week. Not let him off the hook, but unless people that are higher on Waller, I get it. Then it's there when Barkley comes back. But I think there are a couple of guys away on that offense.
I'm with you, and I think you have your graybeards roster that you create, the final elderly, unsigned, yes, previously star free agents. And I think there should be another roster where it's Kenny Pickett would be the quarterback, Darren Waller would be the tight end, where it's we spent a month plus or 2 or 3 months hearing about how glowing, it was Allen Robinson a year ago. These guys that get the 5 or 6 weeks of insane beat writer praise in print and ink. And then the season happens and it's wait, Kenny Pickett doesn't look good. And Darren Waller is not fitting in so well in this offense. And it's
Mark, are you pitching a really good Wednesday podcast segment right now?
I think I am.
Maybe stick a pin in it. I know what you're saying, though. Hype bunnies from the summer who now we're getting, we're heading into week 3. We got to start to see some of that. Anything else kind of jump out to you? I'll throw a couple things out there. You mentioned third down efficiency. I love that stat because it tells you a lot, I think, about both the offense and the opposing defense. Giants could not get off the field on this game. Maybe it's a different game if they do get off the field a couple times in this game. I mentioned that I think a lack of a wide receiver 1 is glaring. They have a bright spot on that defense, and Micah McFadden, who was all over the field in this game and had a great, in addition to every time they needed a big hit, he seemed to be there. He knocked away a touchdown to Christian McCaffrey, which, he's in coverage downfield, swatting a ball out of McCaffrey's hands. And nobody does that. So they have a player in McFadden. So it wasn't all bad for the Giants. And in general, Mark, based on when you look at their first 3 weeks, it's been a little topsy-turvy, but they hung in this game for about 3 quarters. And you can give them a little bit of credit for that, even if the Niners maybe didn't perform at their typical levels.
Yeah, I mean, so compared to the last 2 games where the Giants did this multiple personality scenario situation last week against Arizona, they're outscored 63-6 in the first half this season through tonight. That's messy, and but they were not a disaster out of the gate. I think we're seeing a more stabilized version, but the stabilized version is going to win about 6 or 7 games. The team that I'm seeing right now. So I think if you're a Giants fan, you're disappointed because like you'd like to build off of what happened last year, and you'd like to like have all the people that giggled at you saying like, well, we were wrong. Like they actually were that team, and they can consistently build off of that. I don't love the idea that someone like Adoree Jackson gets hurt tonight. It's like they're losing their best players, and the player that's paid the most, Daniel Jones, is half baked. It's like I want to ask you this because I went and looked at Nick Shook is doing QB Index, doing a great job. I read the whole thing 2 weeks in a row, and like he's a great writer and like he's got a good eye for this. But like he has Purdy at number 8 in his list. That's before tonight, but that is intriguing to me. I think that's like I kept trying to inflate him last year, and it was like people are killing me, but it was like I like what I see from Purdy, but like Daniel Jones down at number 21, and like I don't have a problem with that either. Like it's like that's who he is. Like they paid the guy they had, and there was no other options. But like Daniel Jones, outside of 2 quarters against the Cardinals, is not getting it done this year, and it's like he's not their answer next year. I like you're stuck with him financially, but like,
wow, you're down on him, huh?
So I think number 1 his floor is high because he can run really well, and like when everything around him, like last year, it seemed like for the first time in his career, and why I do like the idea of him, like everything around him kind of works. Saquon was healthy. Like how many injuries did they deal with in the years before with Saquon and all the wideouts? It's like finally they got it. Daniel Jones put it together. He had a couple games where it's like, I mean, I like his arm talent and all that other business, but it's like, this is just a guy that's going to be here until the next New York Giants quarterback, like 2 seasons from now or a year from now. It's like, what evidence do we have right now that he's their dude beyond like this year or next?
I would say we disagree on this. I think he really did take a big step forward last season, and this year has been. I mean, it's really hard. The Cowboys game in Week 1 was what it was. It was grim. They got blown out by a much better team. Bad weather game. He was phenomenal in that comeback win over the Cardinals last week, and you could say it's the Cardinals, but whatever. He was big time in that game. And this game, like I'm pointing to it. I'm pointing to he's missing his best player. The offensive line didn't keep him clean. He didn't have a running game. Darren Waller can't do a damn thing, and they don't have like enough weapons for him to go to. So I just don't think he's the problem right now for the Giants. I think the schedule is a big problem for the Giants. I think starting with the Cowboys in Week 1 and then getting the Niners on a short week on the road in Week 3 is their biggest problem because they're not an elite team and they're going to be exposed in these type of situations. That's where I am on that.
I hear you, and I'm not trying to be too like down on Daniel Jones, but I just think there's like, if we've watched, you and I have probably watched like 400 quarterbacks in our lives, right? Like there's these tiers, and like Daniel Jones to me is in the tier of like great athlete, maybe not great quarterback, but I see it as an athlete. I see like the physical specimen and what he can do. Everything needs to be right around him. I think we've watched quarterbacks where it's like you're watching like 4 apocalypses occur around them, and they're somehow still surviving the storm. Like I just don't see him that way. Like it's not that I'm down on him. It's just like they got to manage him and deal with what they have, and like the pieces around him are not living up. They're hurt or they're not living up to the billing, and it's like that'll put any quarterback in a tough situation. But like Daniel Jones isn't the first guy I trust to like save them. Like I mean, he's spurts. He spurts like. The second half against Arizona, which is the game I tracked last week in the office, it was like, you see, this is last year's Giants team. But then you lose Saquon, and then suddenly everything else falls apart around you, and the Giants are going to win 6 or 7 games, and it's not Brian Daboll's fault. It's like he's not doing a lesser coaching job. I don't like the Dallas game, but like it's not a lesser coaching job. It's just like a lot of stuff, a lot of crap is happening. A lot of nonsense and BS is unfolding around you left and right. Fog of war, and you got to fight through it.
I'll just say different types of players, but a lot of people felt that way about his predecessor as well. And now he's
but I would say
Hall of Fame with 2 rings. So
but I'm high.
He's not a guy. I guess what I'm saying, Mark, is like there are quarterbacks that are high level. Big time, star quarterbacks that can lift a team up and take them higher if you just give them a nice setup. Then there are quarterbacks that are solid guys that like a Kirk Cousins tier, and I think Daniel Jones is in that tier where if you surround him with the right team, watch out. Like, that team can make some noise, especially if you get to the playoffs, a la like a Joe Flacco, who's that type of guy too. You put him with the right team, you get to January and some magical things happen. Eli Manning, another example. He could actually end up going on a run and look elite for a month and flags fly forever. So I think that's where the Giants probably see Jones. I don't think they see him as Patrick Mahomes, but they see him as a guy that, like, we could put him in here, and if we surround him with talent, he's going to thrive. That's where I'm at on him.
I'm with you, and I don't want to exit this, I don't want to exit the conversation with me as suddenly I'm anti Eli Manning. I love Eli, and I'm a pro Giant. I'm prone to be pro Giants.
That's why I'm a little surprised by how down you are on Mr. Dimes right now.
I feel like we've got a large enough sample size.
Marky. Tough spot tonight, Marky. That's a tough spot for Danny.
You know what? I like it. Whatever, it's fine. Well, we'll see. I don't determine his fate. He will determine his fate. So will fate. Fate will determine his fate. So
well put. You know who doesn't care about anything, including fate? This is another reoccurring theme that I forgot about. Al Michaels is in the golden years, and Al is now on Amazon, and he's like, I don't even know if Al knows what Amazon is, but Al's on Amazon, and he's getting paid a lot of money to be the voice of Amazon. But Al, at this stage, and God bless him, and I hope I'm the same way, he suffers no fools, and he does not care to toe any company line. So, with that said, I want to show my favorite moment from the broadcast where they came back from break, and as they had been doing all night, and Mark, we've talked about this. When we covered the Super Bowl 50, how long was that bus ride from the downtown San Francisco hotel we were at to get up to the Big Bell Bottom?
I don't know. I mean, I feel we celebrated a number of birthdays on the ride. So
I think we changed time zones. Anyway, it's long. It's like an hour. They're by San Jose, and Al is sick of seeing the Golden Gate Bridge. He's sick of showing the seals, on the whatchamacallit, the pier. Let's listen to Al keep it real, because he doesn't care if Amazon is happy about this or not.
I mean, San Francisco, it's beautiful. We got so many scenic. Now, we'd like to bring in aerials from nearby here, but what are we supposed to do? The salt evaporator flats? San Jose Airport?
Now, where was the stick?
I'll hear from that.
Well, I know you will.
Yeah, right.
How far was Candlestick from
here? 40 miles. It's in San Francisco, yeah. Right.
The producer's in his ear like, Al, come on, man.
Oh, my God.
What did he say? What did he say was up there? What are we supposed to get aerial shots of? What did he say?
Like the salt flats or something like that? A little world weary.
I love Uncle Al.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have the red hair anymore. He's going all the way in, and this is who I am. This is where I'm at, and God bless him. Anything else from the game? We have a couple NFL news things to hit before we say goodbye. But anything else from the game, Mark?
No, I think we can. I think we've said as much as is needed to be said about that contest that I quickly forget. It evaporates from the mental mind.
And the Giants host Seattle next week, and then their schedule is really brutal after that. So they need to find a way to get past Seattle and get back to 2-2. And if they get to 2-2, they're in good position. The Niners have a layup next week. Well, everybody thinks they have a layup against the Cardinals. So far, it's been more like backing down in the paint and then muscling it up and getting it to go down eventually. But it's not a layup. But they get the Cards next week, and then Mark, Cowboys, Niners on Sunday Night Football. Everybody stay healthy. We're already past that point.
I'm really surprised they put that in prime time. I don't know what they were thinking.
Because the Cowboys aren't going to be healthy when that game comes. They won't have everyone because star cornerback Trevon Diggs suffered a torn ACL in his left knee during Thursday's practice. He suffered the injury during a one-on-one period in practice, briefly spotted inside the team facility. this is according to ESPN's Todd Archer, on crutches before undergoing an MRI, which quickly revealed the tear. Just a huge loss for the Cowboys, Mark. They, through 2 weeks, they put it on both New York teams. The Giants and Jets had no answers for that defense, and Micah Parsons gets obviously much of the pub as the new LT, but Diggs, there's a reason he got a massive contract extension. He is kind of the heartbeat of that secondary and the playmaker of that secondary, and moving on without him will not be easy.
It's a terrible loss. Like, I feel like if you're the Cowboys, you're in this arms race with teams like the Niners and the Eagles, where it's like, you can't be the next team losing these star players. And it's like, but I don't, this happens left and right. I think the one thing about him is, like, I think we understand he's not one of the greatest coverage guys of all time. He's hot and cold on his rankings for that, but ball hawk wise and what he does to infuse the defense and generate turnovers is wild. And they also lost Tyler Badaz, their center, I believe I'm saying his last name. Like, he had a hamstring injury, and it's like,
I think he'll be okay though. That doesn't seem like a serious issue.
I hope so. I mean, like, that's like you it feels almost like you're taking a silent bullet to the head when you're losing guys in practice. If you lose them in a big game, and we all understand why, he's in the heat of battle, but like, you're losing them in practice, it's just like,
oh, it's brutal. And you're happy that Diggs, from a person standpoint, he got that payday before this injury happened, and that included $42 million in guaranteed money. Good for him that he got paid before this terrible setback, and he'll come back strong, I'm sure, next year. But he had gotten off to a great start. According to Next Gen Stats, he had allowed just 3 catches for 31 yards on 8 targets as the nearest defender in coverage this year. Quarterbacks had a passer rating less than 10 on throws coming his way. He also forced the fumble, intercepted a pass, 3 pass breakups, 6 tackles. These are all that's a playmaker at cornerback, and you take him out of the mix, they are not going to be the same back there. They have Deron Bland, who had a pick 6, I believe, in week 1. So he's probably gonna maybe slide over and be that guy, but you're gonna miss him. They're not as good now without Diggs, and that's the brutal part of the sport.
Yep, and like, I think the thing you believe in them, like, even like, no matter what, like, their offense is spicy, but like, it's their defense that's like truly special and somehow carried over from last year to this year as like a top 3, top 4 defense. And like, you start taking these guys away and they can't do the same thing. Like, when you lose your secondary, it's like your pass rush is affected, everything's affected. So the Cowboys, like, if they stay healthy, it's like we talked about it all day today. It's like they could be that team that we're talking about for 2 weeks prior to the Super Bowl. You lose 4 or 5 guys, and it's like someone else creeps in there. Tough one.
All right. Circling back to the game, by the way, Mark, I know our friend Kayvon Thibodeau, he has another tackle. He got a sack. It was a coverage sack early in the game. He did the robot after he got the coverage sack. That was it for Kayvon in the game. So we're still waiting for Kayvon to make a big impact for the Giants, the former first-round pick. Now, I'm not saying I or we are rooting against Kayvon, but the man spoke a pretty large game this summer and a little bit quiet tonight.
I, in general, don't know why anyone – I think if you're on the Giants and you're a professional football player and you can get an idea of how the game is shaping up, the concept that you would spend a number of seconds or minutes doing the robot – feels atypical with like the actual situation. Like, let's get an idea of where we are. This isn't all about you. We're not in a narcissistic landscape. Like, the team is struggling. You've had a tough early start to the year. Like, the over celebratory robot thing. I don't know. I don't need it.
Would you say a narcissistic landscape?
Yeah. It's like, well, no, I mean, look at like,
I think that's exactly where we are.
Yeah, I would aim to like repair our relationship with him, if that's even needed. I don't think he even remembers that he was with us, but it's like, I'm not looking to inflame it or exacerbate it, but I would just say, like, hey, work with my sensibilities a little bit as a observer of the game. Like, you're walking around doing robotic things, like, because the Giants are down, like, you're gonna get flamed. We know you're gonna give up 30 points. You got to tackle. Is this all about you? That's the narcissism. That's the landscape I'm discussing.
Finally, the game that we watched today, Mark, is a certain type of football game. It's the swingers game. It's remember in Swingers when Nicky, played by John Favreau, he didn't have confidence. He's a bear, but he just didn't know how to use the claws, and he needed his buddies Sue and Double Down Trent to help show him the ways. I thought about that today. Let's listen to it.
Don't you are, you're like a big bear with claws and with fangs.
Big fucking teeth,
Yeah,
man.
fucking teeth on you. She's just like this little bunny who's just kind of cowering in the corner.
Shivering.
Yeah, man, just kind of, you know, you got these claws and you're staring at these claws, man, and you're thinking to yourself with these claws, you're thinking, man, how am I supposed to kill this bunny?
And you're
how am I
poking
supposed
at
to
it,
kill
man.
this
You're
bunny?
poking at
Yeah,
it.
you're not hurting it. You're just kind of gently batting the bunny around. You know what I mean? And the bunny's scared, Mike. The bunny's scared of you.
And you got
Shiver.
these fucking
You got
claws
these
and
fucking
fangs,
claws and these
man.
fangs, man. And you're looking at your claws and you're looking at your fangs. And you're thinking to yourself, I don't know what to do, man. I don't know how to kill the bunny. With this, you don't know how to kill the bunny. Do you know what I mean?
You're like a big bear, man.
You're like a big bear, 49ers. Take the claws out and your big fangs, and you just sink into that little bunny, which eventually they did. But that was the classic Swingers game. The big angry bear, for some reason, just batting around the bunny. Like, what are we doing here? Let's just kill the bunny and let's all move on with our lives. The Swingers game.
Yeah. No, and at the end of that film, when they're in the diner and he's just shouting, "I would never eat here," and there's an incredible diatribe against mini backpacks that were a big problem for us, you and I, back in the day. The girls walking around with the mini backpacks. We don't have to deal with that now so much. That's good.
I don't really know what you're talking about with the little.
Well, no, like they are, in the beginning of the film when he's going on his insane, he's on the phone in his apartment. I would say in the late 90s, early 2000 window, there was a period where a lot of city girls or girls in general were walking around with bedazzled backpacks that were about 6 inches by 6 inches. And I don't know what they were keeping in these backpacks. I don't know. Nobody knows, but but they were wearing them and they're wearing them with dresses. And it's it's 11 at night and you're walking around with a backpack. And so it's mentioned in the film and I agreed with the point. I love the film for many reasons. So.
All right. The film is Swingers, 1996, a breakthrough in the indie movement of the 90s. So please check it out if you have. That's our film recommendation for the night. Coming up on in the Around the NFL universe, we have a Thursday Around the NFL Plus joint with Colleen Wolfe serving as the psychiatrist to tortured fans of Around the NFL. That's fun. And then Sunday night, of course, you have the preview, the week 3 previews out there already. And then Sunday we'll be back with the flagship show. And I think that's everything, Mark. Niners rolling, anything short of the Super Bowl in Vegas, Mark. Failure. This team is locked and loaded. Let's see how far they can go. Heed the call.